All right, the next step is after you've gotten to a point where you've got your general overall spaces all sequenced out, um, it's really just a matter of trying to clean it up and get it ready for detail modeling. And so the way that I approach that, if you look at my next step over here, is to create a series of curves like this in the footprints of my spaces and then use that to subtract out volumes. So you'll notice that when you look into the space here, I actually have my, oh, let me move the thingy. This thing, move it up a little bit. I actually have my roof, as it comes down here, being cut off on the inside of this plane. So that wall just comes up and the roof stops right there. And so I did that by taking a curve like this. Well, let me go back to the other one, actually. I'm just going to borrow these, though. Well, no, I'll do it fresh. Let's see, this one. Okay. So I basically did that by turning project on, and I went to a new layer, layer 5. I drew a polyline, and I just traced the outer edges of each of the package profiles. So that's one of them here, and I did another one on the other side, or you could just copy and paste it, but sometimes it's easier to just redraw it. All the way down to here, and then all the way back to here and here. Okay, so let me spin that around. Yeah. All right, so these are the ones that I'm kind of looking at, right? So I've got a curve here that I'm going to use to extrude and trim out everything that's above it right here. I'm going to do the same thing over here and trim out the stuff that's inside. But you'll have to be careful because sometimes the roof overlap gets a little wild, and this is where you need to think about what's really going to be seen, right? Because sometimes it gets messy. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go to the top view and I look at this as an object, right? I've got my curve here, follows the profile around there. I'm trying to trim out this roof, and so my thought is I can actually just take this curve and trim out this excess right here, you would think. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, oh, you know what, I need to ungroup these. Sorry, these should be ungrouped so that you can select the roof planes individually. So if I do trim, I select the curve profile, hit enter, and I trim out that volume, right? It's kind of okay on the inside. However, I don't have an inside face, and there's technically an error on the roof above, right? Because we want to have this actually sweep down properly so that the full volume is there. So the correct option here would be to use an alternative, which is to extrude the curve and create a solid with it. And normally I just kind of pull it a little bit above the roof plane like that. And I start to think about, well, where do I really want to cut it? And I actually tried, pulling this face back because I don't want to trim anything on the outside of it, but then I lose plane with the wall on the inside. So that's not correct. So really what I want to do is keep this surface above the connection of the roof on the inside of the roof, the tall roof, and then I want to keep it below on the outside. So my solution was I'm going to grab this edge and pull it down to a point where I have all of the connective roof above showing, and then on the inside I've fully trimmed out the roof plane from here. And it might not be perfect the first time around, but you try to get it as close as you can. So then you do Boolean difference instead. So Boolean difference, when I subtract from this using this volume, will actually give me the interior surface, so I don't have to remodel anything to get that edge. And it looks like I approximated it closely enough so that I don't actually see any excess material underneath. And then if you look at it above, you cannot see any of the discrepancies on the surface below. So that's about as clean as you can get it in that particular case with a warped surface like that. Unless you're actually using this surface and a couple of copies of that surface to do your subtractions. So that option is available to you. On the inside, it gets a little bit different. Here, we actually want to trim out everything that's inside here and below. So we want to go up and down with that one. And then on this side, we just want to go up. And so that should basically get us what we're looking for. And so if I'm going to grab this curve and do extrude curve, this one I'm just going to switch to both sides. And I don't think really you have to worry about the height of it because it's all encapsulated. Right? You already know that that whole exterior profile is going to be cut out. Additionally, this curve, all you need to do is extrude it without both sides. You just need to make sure that you're clearing the height of that. And so I'm going to, let me turn project off. I just need to pull it slightly above. And so if I'm using that to just, both of those to just trim this roof, that's our start. So then I say Boolean difference. From this surface, I'm going to subtract both that and this. And now I have a clear floor space inside here. If you spin it around, you've got a totally clear inside space here. You've got your roof dipping down on the exterior of the building over here, so that's fully encapsulated as well once you finalize it with a wall. Okay, so there are a number of different ways that you can do this. None of them are perfect, but I think I've provided you enough tools to be able to approach these complex conditions now and figure out ways to clean up your model. So that's step one of the next phase. The other step is we're going to start getting into more detail. And so we're actually going to be creating connections between these spaces. And so the point that I want you to get to before class on Monday, because we're off on Wednesday, remember that, we're off on Wednesday. The point that I want you to get to is, if I jump over to my other model over here, is, and I did this one a little differently, so you see some excess material, but let me just do this. I want you to get to a point where you're actually beginning to create vertical translation, so essentially installing stairs into your model. And so for me, I kind of did this. I'll show you the way I did it. It's a little bit more clever than I think you're used to, but because it's on a skewed angle, for me it was easier to not worry about designing the stair and then rotating it into place, which you can do. You can design it on the side and rotate it in. But I actually decided, well, I'm going to start by drawing a curve. It's down here. So I drew a curve actually that goes inside the edge of that door, and I just said extrude curve. My direction I set from here to here. Oh, project. Extrude curve, project is on. Direction I said from here to here, and then I pulled it out and said 5 feet. That gave me a plane. Then I selected that and I said extrude surface, -6 inches. Then I grabbed the front face and I said extrude surface, and I pulled it out. Did we do 1 foot increments, or did we actually make them 22 inches? It should be 22 inches. Okay, so then it was as simple as take that step and move it to do your midpoint technique that I showed you before. So midpoint goes down, and then you just copy and paste, or you could do an array, but at this point it's only a couple of treads, so I'm just going to copy and paste my way all the way down. One more. And that creates your stair. So you don't have to rotate it into place or anything like that. It's a pretty autonomous process using the features of extrusions. So the goal is to make sure that we've got vertical translation between them all. So then you'd have to put another stair in to your bottom floor if you're doing, 3 different levels that are connected to one another. So please talk to me if your condition is any different than that. So what questions do you have about what your requirements are for Monday's class? This is the level of progress you'll need when we begin class on Monday. So that doesn't leave you too much time tonight. There is lab time available to you. But I would suggest, even if everything's not perfect, I think it would behoove you to simplify what you're trying to do now and get to a point where you can have this done by Monday, because we're going to start getting into some serious detail. Are there any questions?
Did you specify the dimensions between the floors?
Nope.
No?
It's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all designed. The distance between floors, the location, of them to one another, that's all up to you. Remember, when I gave you all the options for how you can lay it out, they don't even technically have to be attached. If they're not attached, what I will request is that you have some vertical elevation gain between them and you're connecting them with stairs.
Could we have a series of stairs that are surrounded by just like a tall wall or a really short wall?
I don't know what you mean by that. If you could sketch it for me, I'll check it out. Sure. But, all right, so I'll be around. I'll be helping you guys out. For the remainder of class, I think it's work time. Let's try to get to this level if we can tonight.